Have you ever returned to your vehicle to discover that the battery has a low charge, even though the vehicle had only been sitting for a short period of time? If so, you may have a draw in your battery caused by a failing accessory or a miswired component. Although having a battery draw is a typical occurrence in older project vehicles, this is not something you have to live with. In this video, we will show you how to find a mystery draw in a vehicle wired with an American Auto Wire Universal Wiring Kit, or a vehicle-specific Classic Update wiring kit. So what is a battery draw in this context? A battery draw is an unintended completed circuit that is drawing power from the battery and is prematurely depleting the battery when the vehicle is parked or stored. This is different from an intended battery draw for items that are designed to pull a small amount of current from the battery when the vehicle is parked, such as clocks and EFI memory modules. The big difference being that items with intended draws are designed to pull a small amount of current and will deplete the battery over a long period of time, where unintended battery draws will often pull quite a bit of current, depleting the battery much faster. In simpler terms, an unintended draw means that current is flowing through the electrical system when we don't want it to be. Although vehicle wiring systems can seem complicated, and finding an unintended mystery draw might feel like a daunting task, we are going to outline an easy step-by-step process to ensure you that you will find your draw in short order. So, let's get into it. The first thing you will need to get started is a good test light. We recommend the American Auto Wire test light, part number 500517, but any simple test light will do. Once you are armed with a test light, make sure that your key is in the off position. Disconnect your negative battery cable, leaving the positive battery cable in place. Then bridge the gap between the negative battery cable and the negative battery post as shown here. If there is a battery draw present, the test light will light up, as current will be flowing through the electrical system. If the test light does not light up, there is no draw present. During testing, we will be leaving this test light in place, and we will be watching the light as our indicator that there is current passing through the system. The goal is to have this light illuminated only when intended draws are present. For most vehicles, there are two common intended draws present when a vehicle is parked. The first is the feed to the clock and radio memory, and the second is the dome and courtesy light circuit. Since these are intended draws, they will be pulling current even when a vehicle is parked, so we will want to disconnect these circuits before we start investigating the unintended draw. On most American Auto Wire kits, this can be done by simply pulling the clock and brake courtesy fuse. If you have an unintended draw, the test light should remain illuminated after these fuses are pulled. Now we can get down to the task of finding the mystery draw. One of the most common unintended power draws we see is caused by an alternator backfeed, where power is running from the battery through the alternator back to the fuse panel, powering up accessory items, even when the key is off. Therefore, the first thing we recommend doing is unplugging your alternator while watching the test light. If the test light goes off, you have discovered the cause of your draw. This is often one of the easiest unintended draws to fix because you can simply add a diode on the alternator exciter wire to prevent this backfeed to the ignition switch and fuse panel. A diode acts as a one-way valve to prevent the current backfeed in this context. American Auto Wire offers diode part numbers 500529 and 500541 to correct this type of backfeed. Alternators can also fail internally, creating an unintended draw, so if your test light remains on after you unplug the alternator, or if you have a one-wire alternator without an exciter wire plug, the next step is to disconnect the alternator charge wire. We recommend disconnecting the charge wire at the mega fuse. If the test light goes out after you disconnect the alternator charge wire, this means the alternator is faulty and it will need to be repaired or replaced. Another common unintended power draw is caused by a backfeed from an aftermarket ignition box or fuel injection computer, where power is running from the battery through the ignition box or fuel injection system to the fuse panel, powering up accessory items even when the key is off. Therefore, the next step is disconnecting the main ignition wire from the fuel injection harness or ignition box while watching the test light. If your test light goes out, this generally indicates a fault or malfunction in your ignition or fuel injection system. You will want to contact the ignition system or fuel injection system manufacturer to further troubleshoot this backfeed. If your test light remains on after unplugging your clock fuse and your courtesy fuse and after you disconnected the alternator and main ignition feed, the next thing you will want to do is unplug your horn relay. On American Auto Wire electrical systems, the horn relay is powered as soon as the battery is hooked up, and if the horn is not hooked up yet, it can be activated silently by the horn relay ground via the horn button, causing a battery discharge. If your test light goes out when you disconnect the horn relay, this means that either your horn relay is damaged and will need to be replaced, or your horn button is out of adjustment or needs to be repaired. The horn button should only connect the horn relay ground wire to ground when the horn button is physically depressed. Now you have disconnected all of the items that do not have fuses on most American Auto Wire fuse panels. If the light on your test light remains on, this means an item connected to the fuse panel is causing this unintended draw. To figure out which item is causing the draw, you simply need to start pulling fuses from the fuse panel one at a time, checking the test light after each fuse is pulled. When you finally pull a fuse that causes the test light to go out, you have identified the circuit that is involved in the power draw. Please note, this circuit might be an item that is incorrectly wired to a battery circuit on the fuse panel and should be moved to a keyed ignition or accessory circuit. Or this could be caused by a malfunctioning device that's supposed to be connected to battery power, but is drawing power when it shouldn't be. This is the power path for that type of unintended draw. Another type of unintended battery draw that you might find is an item connected to a keyed circuit that is powered up even when the key is turned off. This type of draw is caused by a backfeed from an electrical accessory that has its own connection to battery constant power, and it is returning this power to the fuse panel ignition or accessory bus bars when it shouldn't be. Common circuits that might cause this kind of backfeed include electric fan, electric fuel pump, aftermarket AC, and aftermarket radio connections. This is what the power flow might look like for this kind of unintended draw. That said, no matter what kind of unintended draw your vehicle is experiencing, if you follow the steps outlined in this video, you will almost always be able to identify the circuits involved for circuit correction or repair. Also keep in mind that you might have more than one unintended draw on your vehicle, so these steps might need to be repeated until all of the unintended draws are discovered. Finally, these steps cover electrical components that are wired into your American Auto Wire wiring system. But you might have items that are wired independently of your American Auto Wire kit that are causing the draw. These items will need to be disconnected one at a time while watching the test light to see if they are involved in a battery draw. I hope you have enjoyed this look into finding unintended power draws on your electrical system. Although unintended power draws can be frustrating, following this systematic, step-by-step approach should help you locate any of these draws in short order. Thank you for watching.